Gypsy lies on the stand.
Gypsy Rose recently did a live with Julie with the recap, and she went on that live, and baby, she had a lot to say about what she did for Nick. Love Julie's videos and this clip, and then let's really get into what Gypsy did for Nick.
All of it. Testify against him. I testified for him, meaning I was there for the defense.
Oh.
It was not part of my plea agreement to testify against him. I was going to get the plea without that. For him, for a lesser charge or a lesser sentence. I hate it when people get that misunderstood.
I had it mixed up, so
in
I preferred it.
support for him, actually. Some years later, and I felt a due diligence to do the right thing and share, take accountability. Everybody's like, she doesn't take accountability. I literally went to his trial and took accountability.
One, Gypsy Rose was called as a witness for Nick's defense. It's not like she could say, nope, I'm not testifying. And it's not like she could get on the stand and fucking lie. The evidence was right there in front of the attorneys. Had she had tried to tell too big of a lie, they would have been able to call her the fuck out. She was literally forced to take accountability. Just like when she went in front of the parole board to get out, she had to take accountability.
November 15th, 2018. Gojan is not looking at Gypsy as she begins her testimony.
How old were you when you met Nick?
About 21.
In June of 2015, what did you consider your relationship to Nick to be? What kind of relationship?
We were boyfriend, girlfriend
And when did you become boyfriend and girlfriend?
in October of 2012.
When did you first meet Nick in person?
March of 2015.
So between October of 2012 and March of 2015, you hadn't actually met Nick in person?
That is correct.
What type of relationship did you have during that period of time?
Online relationship.
And by online? All by way of computer and cell phones?
Yes, sir.
Did you send videos to each other?
Yes, sir.
Prior to March of 15, when you indicated you met Mr. Godejohn for the first time in person, had your mother met him?
No, sir.
Did she know he existed?
No, sir.
Why is it she didn't know?
Because it was a secret relationship and my mother would never allow me to have a boyfriend.
Was that a year ago, 2 years ago? How long ago was that?
That was back in March
Back in March of...
this year.
Oh, okay, so you were in Springfield before.
Yep.
And did her mom know you were here?
No, I got to meet her mom in person for the first time.
And was her mom nice to you, or?
Yeah, she was really nice to me. And
Okay.
Why not?
Because she controlled every aspect of my life.
Did you and Nick ever talk about the fact that you were not allowed to date?
Yes.
How many times do you think?
I don't remember.
Did you and your mother ever have any discussions about whether you were ever going to be able to date?
Yes, sir.
Did you and Nick talk about that?
We may have.
What did your mother say about your ability to date going forward?
She said that it would never happen, that she would never allow it.
What about marriage?
In this article from an unknown source, it states, the other thing people always remarked on was the close relationship Dee Dee had with her daughter, who she looked after full-time. She always made sure Gypsy, 19, looked immaculate, and had been even more proud in recent months since she had been dating 26-year-old Nicholas Gojan. They're so in love, she'd tell her friends. If Nicholas was 26, then Gypsy was not 19 at this time. Gypsy was 23. Also, who took the picture of Nicholas and Gypsy sitting together at the theater? It had to be Dee Dee. Why did Dee Dee allow them to sit together? Dee Dee was never against Gypsy dating Nick. Dee Dee was against Gypsy being with Dan.
In June of 2015, were you in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did Nick know you were in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Why were you in a wheelchair in June of 2015?
Because my mother forced me to be in one.
Do you know why you were forced to be in a wheelchair?
No, sir, she just forced me to be in one.
Court records from Nicholas Gojon versus the state of Missouri. Page 65. Further, in a video dated May 26, 2014, Gypsy shows Nicholas how she can stand and walk. She explains that when she was 6 years old, she went into the hospital, and that during surgery the doctors said she had a seizure and was paralyzed. They didn't know if it was only temporary. She started getting feeling and tingling in her legs. She was young and kept it to herself. She kept it from her mom because she was afraid her mom would stop loving her.
And how long had you been in a wheelchair as of June of 2015?
Since probably I was about 8 years old.
As we just read, it had been since Gypsy was 6 years old.
Was there a time between when you first were put in a wheelchair and June of 2015 that you figured out that you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
When was that?
I always knew that I didn't need the wheelchair. We met
When did you tell Nick that you didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
a year into our relationship.
So if your relationship began in October of 2012, it would have been sometime in 2013 that you first told him that you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair.
That is correct.
According to the court records we just read, Gypsy showed Nicholas she could stand and walk on May 26, 2014. That would be almost 2 years after meeting Nicholas online.
Cinderella.
How is it you were able to meet with Nick in March of 2015?
I paid for his transportation, his lodging to get there.
Why'd you pay for it?
I didn't think he'd have enough money.
And you say you met him at the Cinderella movie. And was your mother present?
Yes.
Did you and Nick talk that night?
Yes.
How did that work out?
It didn't go well at all. My mother hated him from the moment they met.
We have previously proved this was not true. Also with Nicholas saying that Dee was very nice to him.
At some point, you decided to kill your mother. Is that correct?
Yes.
When was that?
Thoughts of it started a year prior to the murder actually happening.
Whose idea was it to kill your mother?
Mine.
Why did you want to kill your mother?
Because I wanted to be free of her hold on me.
The thoughts of unaliving Gypsy's mother were more than a year prior to the crime happening, as she said. Gypsy tried to shoot her mother with a BB pew-pew thinking it had been a regular pew-pew back in 2011. According to her book, My Time to Stand, she also went after her mother with a dagger in her other hand while the BB pew-pew was in one hand. Also, Gypsy had been grooming Nick to unalive her mother for over 2 years.
By Nick in 2015. What all did you pay for?
I paid for the Greyhound bus ticket. I paid for the hotel and for eating money.
And how did you pay for this? How did you get the money to Nick?
I stole the money from my mother and I sent it to him via the mail.
Gypsy, if you wouldn't mind speaking up just a bit.
Yes.
Just a little soft.
Sorry.
I think you said you put it in the mail?
Yes, sir.
In what form was the money?
Cash.
Do you know how much you sent him that time?
I don't know the exact amount. Probably about $800.
How did he get down? How did he get from here to Springfield?
Bus.
With the Greyhound? Okay. And then, did you guys give him any money or anything so he could put up a hotel? Did he have money from his...
She sent the money.
She is in Gypsy?
Yeah.
So, okay. How much money did she send him? No idea.
No clue.
How do you know that she sent him money? Did he tell you that,
Yeah,
or
he
was it
told me.
something that you see?
No, he told me.
Do you know how much she sent him?
I have no clue.
Okay.
I know it was like, I'd say a few $100s.
Okay. And what makes you think that?
Because he had money for the taxi, and the taxi driver's like, well, first, the taxi was supposed to be $75, and then it changed to like $80-some. But we told the taxi driver to turn around, we'd pay him for,
Right.
whatever, and then we'd give him a ride down there. And I just seen some of the money that he was counting out, and I know he had a couple hundred on him easily.
Okay.
But last time when I took him down, she sent up, I think, $400 or $500, and that's out of her SSI, supposedly.
Did she send him cash or check or money
Cash.
order? Cash? Did she send through the mail?
Yeah.
Surprised I got through.
Gypsy, how many boyfriends did you have prior to Nick?
None.
We all know that's a lie since Gypsy tried to run away with Dan in 2011 before ever meeting Nick.
How did Nick know when to do this crime, time-wise, that morning?
I told him.
Who planned this murder?
I did.
Did Nick do any of the planning in this murder?
He may have had one or two.
Do you know what plans he provided?
He decided what the weapon would be.
Had you discussed alternative methods of killing your mother?
Yes.
What other alternatives had you considered?
Poison, arson, a gun.
Why did you not consider poison?
It was too hard to find an odorless, tasteless poison.
Why didn't you kill your mother?
I didn't believe I could do it.
Could you explain what you mean by that?
I don't like blood. I don't like the sight of blood. Frankly, I'm too squeamish, so I just honestly didn't believe I could do it on my own.
First off, Gypsy knew about poisoning the step-grandmother with Roundup when she was younger. Some say it was DD that did it, and others say it was Gypsy. Either way, Gypsy knew about it and had to have seen her step-grandmother get very sick. If she had poisoned DD in the same way, there wouldn't have been any blood for her to worry about. Also, Gypsy doesn't seem to hate the sight of blood judging by this picture, and the fact she cleaned up a lot of blood with baby wipes.
And where were you planning on going?
Back to his mom's house in Wisconsin.
Did you encounter any problems that caused you to be delayed from leaving Springfield?
Yes, sir.
What problems?
His return bus ticket, there was no room for an extra passenger on that bus, so we had to change bus tickets. So that delayed us about a day.
Gypsy said previously that she paid for the bus ticket. Why didn't she buy herself a bus ticket too if she was planning to go back with Nick to his home in Wisconsin? Could it be she was really planning to go with Dan to Arkansas and have Nick go home by himself?
Who paid for that motel room?
I did.
Who went in to reserve the room?
Nick did.
Why did Nick go in and make the reservation if you were paying for it?
I didn't want to be seen.
Why did you not want to be seen?
I didn't want to be recognized.
Did you go anyplace else other than Days Inn while you remained in Springfield after your mother's death?
Yes.
Where?
The Waffle House, right across the street. Post office. Walmart. And of course the Greyhound bus station.
So let's get this straight. Gypsy wouldn't go into the Days Inn to check into a room because she didn't want to be recognized. But she did go into the Waffle House, which she says was right across the street and had no worry about being recognized. Also the Walmart where many people she knew could have recognized her, and the post office. This really doesn't make sense.
Why'd you go to the post office?
To mail the knife back to his mother's house.
And who decided to mail the knife through the mail?
I did.
Why did you decide to mail it through the mail?
Because he wanted me to take it in my backpack, and I never had ridden on a bus before, and I didn't think that there were any way that I could get it through without being undetected.
In texts written from Gypsy to Nicholas on the night of the smurder, and when Nicholas was still riding the bus to Springfield, Missouri from Wisconsin, she states, "I have been on a bus from Hyannisport to Boston. I enjoyed it." Nicholas replies, "Interesting, hun." The bus ride is nearly 3 hours long. It's possible she took Peter Pan buses, but it would be very much like riding a Greyhound bus. Also, you can see she had a bus pass, so she had been on buses before and knew how they worked.
A little bit about during your relationship, these alter egos that the defendant and you came up with. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
It was the defendant who first introduced you to that idea of alter egos.
Yes, sir.
And he actually first told you about his alter ego, Victor. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And Victor was a vampire that was 500 years old.
Yes, sir.
And you decided to come up with your alter egos just to kind of please him.
Yes, sir.
And also, as part of this fantasy, you also started to kind of consider yourselves as master and slave, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the defendant was the master,
Yes, sir.
and you were the slave.
Yes, sir.
And at one point, he had sent you basically like a bill of sale, kind of ownership papers. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Owned you.
Yes, sir.
And you also were asked a little bit about the videos that you and the defendant sent back and forth. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
And on a lot of those videos that you would send, the defendant would actually send you a script beforehand, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that script would instruct you on what to do in the videos.
Yes, sir.
And they weren't always things you wanted to do, correct?
That is correct.
But you did them anyways.
Yes, sir.
Because the defendant told you to.
Yes, sir.
Defense witness Gypsy Blanchard. Defense counsel deposed co-defendant Gypsy Blanchard on November 1, 2018, just before trial, and called her as a defense witness to testify that she planned the murder. However, counsel was otherwise wholly ineffective in eliciting through Gypsy other readily available and admissible evidence to support their theory of defense and to counter the state's theory of defense. Over the course of their almost 3-year relationship, Gypsy sent Nicholas close to 100 videos, which the state asked if Nicholas introduced her to the idea of roleplay with alter egos, and Gypsy replied yes. We know this is a lie because of Dan Glidewell's testimony that Gypsy had been doing BDSM videos back and forth with him before ever meeting Nicholas. Gypsy further testified that as part of the roleplay, Nick was the master and she the slave. The state went on to suggest through their cross-examination that on a lot of those videos Nicholas would send her a script and instruct her on what to do in the videos. Gypsy claimed to do things in the videos that she didn't always want to do but did them because Nicholas told her to do them. She further admitted to engaging in great fantasies with Nicholas, but claimed to not be crazy about the idea and that she was simply indulging him. Though counsel had available videos which suggested otherwise, counsel failed to establish that this testimony was false. Only a very small portion of the videos appear to be scripted by Nicholas. The grand majority are of Gypsy's own creation. Some of the actually explicit videos are formatted to look like a real movie with credits at the end. There are many in which she has acts with herself using her fingers or objects, including a toothbrush, where she appears to very much be enjoying herself and not engaging in activity, simply to indulge Nicholas. D.D. Blanchard's daughter Gypsy Rose has taken the stand in the Go John trial. She testifies the plot to kill her mom was her boyfriend's.
Sure, let's try that.
No.
So we can keep killing mom as a last resort, nothing like that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Of the plans, you mentioned that how the murder was to take place, that was all up to the defendant, correct?
That is correct.
And it was the defendant that told you he wanted to stab your mom.
Correct.
And it was the defendant that told you he wanted a knife.
Yes.
And he figured it would be easier for you to get a knife because you could steal it because you would be in the wheelchair, correct?
Correct.
Then you had some messages as the defendant was taking the cab from the Days Inn to your house, right?
Yes, sir.
And those texts pretty much led right up to him being at the door, correct?
Yes, sir.
And before he got to your house, he wanted to make sure that you were wearing something that he approved of. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
And if you look there to your right, you agree that, and that's a little bit earlier in the evening, so you stated around 2, 3 o'clock is when your mom died, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that'd be the morning of the 10th.
Yes, sir.
So this is a couple hours before, not about 9 o'clock on the 9th, and he says that he expects you to look like his woman should, and he suggests red fingernail polish, correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember you actually told him you didn't have any red fingernail polish?
Yes, sir. I remember.
And so you came up, was it with pink lip gloss?
Pink.
Okay,
Yeah.
pink fingernail polish.
You didn't have any red nail polish, Gypsy? What is all of this? Did you choose pink because that was your mother's favorite color and you had done her nails too?
He asks you again there on the left to answer the question, right?
Yes, sir.
And then looks like from 9:25 to 10, you still haven't answered him, and he's asking you again, right?
Yes, sir.
But what he's waiting on an answer for is how you're going to be dressed when he gets there to kill your mom.
Yes, sir.
And you eventually answer him there at 10 that you'll be in a nightgown with painted pink nails and lip gloss, right?
Yes, sir.
And then he says to you, okay, but when he gets you from the bathroom, I suggest you are naked when he sees you after the deed. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And while you were in the bathroom, you could hear your mom, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you heard her scream,
Yes, sir.
and she screamed your name.
Yes, sir.
And once you were cleaning up afterwards, he wanted you to help clean up blood, right?
Yes, sir.
And he wanted you to clean naked.
Yes, sir.
Because that kind of turned him on.
Yes, sir.
As for I'm jumping back just a second, okay? Going back real quick to your plans for afterwards when you were in Wisconsin, you had a pre-planned story that you were going to say in the event that you were ever caught, right?
Yes, sir.
And he came up with that story.
Yes, sir.
And so, considering the possibility of getting caught after the murder, the defendant told you of a story that you guys could come up with.
Yes, sir.
And actually, before the police arrested you in Wisconsin, you were hiding in the closet of Nick's room together, right?
That is correct.
And he confirmed with you to make sure that you have the story down.
That is correct.
You say to him, oh, you may not need to put the gloves on because we will sink it so it's never found. You're talking about the knife, right?
Yes, sir.
And if you look there to the right, it's the defendant that tells you he is still going to put the gloves on, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though you suggested he may not need it.
Yes, sir.
I'm almost done. When the defendant agreed to kill your mom, at some point he told you that he also wanted to rape her.
Yes, sir.
You did not want the defendant to rape your mom, correct?
No, sir.
And in fact, in leaving the decision of how to kill her up to the defendant, you never told him to stab her 17 separate times, right?
No.
Oh. And you certainly didn't tell him to cut her neck down to the bone, right?
No.
And when he asked you about raping your mother, you actually talked him out of it, right?
Yes.
And you did so by offering the alternative that he would be able to rape you after the murder, correct?
That is correct.
I don't have any further questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Yes, sir.
Did Nick ever rape you?
No.
And when you guys had sex after your mother's murder, was that consensual?
It started out as consensual, yes.
What do you mean it started out as consensual?
I told him to stop during sex, and he did not.
So you agreed to have sex with him consensually?
Yes.
Now, the prosecutor said that, asked you about this story, that, which was a lie, of course, about what you were going to tell law enforcement when, if you got caught, correct?
That is correct.
And I think you testified that Nick came up with that story.
That is correct.
Isn't it true that both of you
I'm
came
going to
up?
object to leading.
Judge, he's impeached the witness.
Are you going to reference something?
Yes.
Would you tell us the page number, please?
I'll have her.
That you're referencing?
And I also may ask clarification on when I impeached the witness. I don't recall that.
Yeah.
Judge, Judge, can I show her deposition?
To see if it refreshes her recollection? Is that the purpose?
Yes.
Yes. And tell her the page number then, please.
Gypsy, I'm on page 79.
If you turn to page 79, please. And I don't want you to read it out loud.
Okay.
If you'd read it to yourself, please.
I'm going to start with line 5.
Okay.
See line 5 on page 79?
Yes, sir.
Now, first of all, let's be clear what we're talking about. We're talking about a deposition that you gave on November 1st, 2018. You recall that, do you not?
Yes, sir.
The question on line 5 is question. Did they just come into the room? You see that question?
Yes, sir.
There's a rather extended answer of your part. Would you go ahead and just read your answer in full?
Yes, sir.
And if you can't read, I apologize. You can read?
I could read, yes,
Okay.
sir. No. They had armored vehicles outside. There were patrol cars all surrounding the house. They came in with the canine unit downstairs. And I remember that because I thought it was his dog barking. But it was the canine unit. And they kept saying, "Come downstairs, Nick Godejohn, you are under arrest. Come down with your hands above your head." And we both woke up at that point. I looked at him scared, and he said to get in the closet. So we both got into his bedroom closet, where we stayed there for a little while discussing what we were going to tell the cops. And I told him, "Let me go down first. Let me leave the closet." I told the officers I'm coming downstairs. They said walk to my voice, and I walked down the stairs. They grabbed me and put me in handcuffs, and they pulled me out into the yard and started asking me questions like, "Does he have any weapons?" And I said no, and that was it.
And in this question and in your answer, you talk about this closet situation. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And who did you say in that answer had come up with the story?
We did.
And that's the truth, is it not?
Yes.
It's something you both discussed.
Yes.
Wasn't just him.
No, it was the both of us.
Now, the date that you set on this code together,
Yes.
what was the code?
I believe it was 3 knocks and 2 scratches on the door
Why did you need a code?
to let me know when to come out of the bathroom.
Did you have any concerns about what might happen?
Yes.
What concerns did you have?
I was afraid that my mother would end up hurting him.
Now, this knife, why did you buy the knife at Walmart?
I did not buy it. I stole it.
I apologize. Why did you get the knife at Walmart? How about that?
He asked me to.
And what was your understanding was going to happen to that knife, with that knife?
He was going to use it to kill my mother.
And you knew that when you went and stole it, correct?
Yes.
Why didn't anyone ask Gypsy, how did your mother never see the knife you stole from Walmart when she had to pick you up out of your wheelchair so she would see it on your seat? Why didn't anyone ask Gypsy, how did your mother never see all the money you stole from her? How could she not notice the hundreds of dollars missing? Why didn't anyone ask Gypsy, why didn't you just leave with Nicholas instead of offing your mother? Why didn't anyone ask Gypsy, if you were so afraid of your mother, then why did it take you over 2 years to plan to unalive her? Why didn't anyone ask Gypsy why? And was it worth it?